Cher here, and boy do I have a good one today. So I didn't think this incident would blow up overnight because the first time I heard about this was someone I follow basically retweeted this thing on Twitter and basically said, "Oh my god, this person's so stupid, it's incomprehensible." When I looked up on Twitter this morning, apparently the whole incident blew up like nothing we expected to happen. And for those of you who are in the Disney and film community of things, I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. But to start off with, basically for those of you who have been living under a rock, or if you're not Disney fans, there's this little film from 2002 called Lilo and Stitch. And again, for those of you who don't know it, it's considered to be a Disney classic. Like, it's one of those movies that your childhood has not been fulfilled if you did not watch this movie. Now, I was 6 years old when this movie came out in the summer of 2002. And I think it became like one of my favorite movies afterwards. Well, because Stitch is so adorable, how can you not? And when they brought Lilo and Stitch to the Disney parks, especially since I was like a 6-7-year-old kid who just found out that you can meet Stitch at the Polynesian Village, which was the hotel that my family and I used to stay at in the early years of going to Disney, I was floored. Like, I was so happy. I got to meet my favorite alien Disney character of all time. It was fantastic. However, last night on Twitter, there was an account that I have never heard before, and thank God I never heard of them before, because according to my sister, they have been causing a lot of controversy and problems all over the internet, so thank God I've never heard of these people. But they basically decided to post a movie review or rant on Twitter explaining why they think Lilo and Stitch is a bad movie in comparison to the classic that we were obviously used to. And we've seen like people rant about Disney films all the time, like it's not new, like people see them on YouTube all the time. Again, nothing new, nothing special, unless it's something big like Frozen, but that's besides the point. But something about this review basically got the internet having a huge riot on Twitter. And the biggest reason for that is the person who talked about this movie basically ranted or reviewed about it like they never ever watched this movie before and they got the whole plot of it wrong. Which you would think, but Cait, it's Lilo and Stitch. It's a Disney movie. It came out 18 years ago. You would think people would know what it was about even if they've never seen it. I would think so too, but apparently I was wrong. This tweet got so much uproar that not only were the Disney fans raging about it, not only was the film community on YouTube ranting about it, but even Kevin Perger from Defunctland, who you know is basically an amusement park review channel, also got involved and basically said the following. "I love when someone tries to explain to you why a movie is bad, but their opinion is so off base and poorly articulated that they instead just explain the movie's point in a frustrated tone. Anyways, Lilo and Stitch is good, and I'm going to rewatch it. Stop using this tweet to defend The Last Jedi, it's about Lilo and Stitch. Take a day off, people." Okay, I don't know about the last part with The Last Jedi, but we are not talking about The Last Jedi, because I do not like Star Wars. I've never seen like the last 3 Star Wars movies because I do not care. So as I was researching this tweet, I apparently found out that this was supposed to be an explanation or a follow-up to someone's other tweet about this movie, but I didn't really get to that, or I couldn't really find that one. But besides, this was the tweet that basically got the ball rolling, and this is what made people so angry anyway. So with that said, I'm just going to explain the whole tweet piece by piece and put in my thoughts as to what the heck is going on. So it starts off by having this quaintly cute animation drawn about these two Twitter people about to go into why they do not like Lilo and Stitch, as if to say, oh, our point is so good, this movie's so bad, so it should be funny that we're talking about this, her. Yeah, right. So anyway, actually, this tweet was actually taken to Twitter because someone actually asked this person a question on Tumblr, as you do. People sometimes they ask questions on Tumblr and they would post them on their account, which basically says this: would you mind sharing a quick summary of why you don't think Lilo and Stitch is a good movie? I didn't get to see the stream, and I'm quite curious as I haven't met a person who didn't think Lilo and Stitch was a fantastic movie. Okay, so apparently this was from a stream that this person did. Maybe they're a Twitch streamer, they're on YouTube. I don't know because I don't follow these people. So of course the person replies with this: sure thing, I'll try to be brief. By the way, this is not going to be brief. This is 3 full pages of this. So let's take a look at Lilo and Stitch's setup. It's actually a great premise. A kid who thinks the world is set against her, an older sister who is at her wit's end trying to care for the kid completely on her own. This scenario happens a lot in real life, where the kid feels as though nothing is in her favor and life itself is unfair. Her ideals aren't matching up with reality. Well, in a way, that portion is, well, true, because as we know from the beginning of this movie, when we meet Lilo for the first time, we get to know that their parents are not in the picture, and her older sister, Nani, is responsible for making sure that Lilo has a roof over her head, that she has food on the table, that she's not getting in trouble at school, like all that jazz. The thing that, this is kind of where the trouble starts, is that, yeah, it's a setup for the human characters, but already it's kind of ignoring the fact that this movie is called Lilo and Stitch, and they're missing the fact that, yeah, there's an alien part to this too. So is that going to be brought up? Because the whole movie is not about just Lilo, if you know what I mean. The kid and her sister, Lilo and Nani, have a really bad fight, and Lilo shuts herself in her room in a tantrum. Later, Nani finds Lilo wishing for an angel to come and save her from this horrible situation she's in. Horrible meaning that, Lilo is being bullied at school, that, she and her sister are kind of not doing well, because this is where we meet, Cobra Bubbles, the, I think he's like a child protective services agent, works for the government sort of thing, and, like, Nani's making sure that she can keep her sister in the house, because Nani is at the age where she's supposed to be in college right now, and because their parents are not in the picture, she doesn't have a degree. She's working as a waitress at this luau type tourist joint, so she's not making a great amount of money, but it should be enough to make sure that all the bills are paid. Lilo has food on the table, they have clothes to wear, you know, the whole shebang. So if you mean a horrible situation by that standard, yeah, I guess you'd be right. But at the same time, I'm like, what horrible situation are you talking about? Is someone being abused? Because no, Nani's not abusing Lilo by any means. Now here's where the movie starts to do what it shouldn't do. Let's take a look at Lilo. Lilo isn't just the bullied weird kid. She's a brat. Her first instinct when somebody says something she doesn't like is to get violent, and it may seem funny on screen, but this sort of behavior is not funny in real life, and if you think it is, there is a real problem here. Lilo is horrendously ungrateful for everything Nani sacrifices for her, and gets bitter and spiteful when she's called on it. So much so that the child throws a tantrum. Poor Nani is left still trying to pick up the slack, still trying to fix things in Lilo's destructive wake, and Lilo honestly doesn't care. Okay. Obviously, this person did not get the context clues of the situation either. By calling Lilo a brat, of all things, this is entirely missing the situation of the entire movie. So we didn't learn until the end of the second act of the movie that Lilo and Nani's parents actually died in a car crash. Like, it was raining and the car must have driven off the road or something. Like, they didn't really give a giant explanation on it, but we know it's a car crash and it was really bad weather when it happened. Lilo, in this case, she is a kid and was young when this car crash happened, and she was at an age where when a kid gets told that you're never going to see your parents again because they died, I cannot imagine what this little girl is going through. She must be going crazy, because first her life was normal one day, but then all of a sudden it's not. When this person says her first instinct when somebody says something she doesn't like, she gets violent, that was the part where she arrives late at her hula class, and her teacher is asking her why she's soaking wet, and what we learned from the scene before was that she was in the ocean feeding Pudge the fish, who is our fish friend, and she says that Pudge controls the weather. When her teacher asks why you're doing this, why is this so important, and this is when Myrtle, the stupid white girl who bullies her all the time, calls Lilo crazy. First of all, this is not a first-time instance. From what we learned in that scene, I think we come to understand that Lilo has been taking this nonsense for a while, and it's because of this girl who's in class together with her, obviously. She's most likely doing this all the time. Of course Lilo is gonna get defensive. Like, Myrtle doesn't know her situation at all, so the fact that Myrtle's trying to poke the bear here, of course, Lilo's gonna strike. Like, what else is Lilo going to do? I mean, yes, it's wrong, but in Lilo's case, because she's getting bullied so often, she's bound to snap. So this person is making Lilo seem that, Lilo has a short fuse. No, she doesn't. Lilo's trying her best to keep her composure, and considering the situation that she's going through, a child does not handle a parent's death like an adult does. An adult will try their best to keep themselves composed. They have other adults to explain, how hard it is to suffer through a parent's death. Lilo is a child. She's 6 or 7 in the point of this movie. That's very young to have your parents die and for you to be basically living almost on your own. So, for them to say her first instinct is to get violent, that's most likely not true. But at the same time, she's a kid, and when these kids are bullying her for her situation, basically, if I were in her position, I probably would have done the same thing. And then they're saying that Lilo is horrendously ungrateful for everything that Nani sacrifices for. That is also very untrue. Because in the scene after the fight, when Nani comes into Lilo's room and tries to talk about the situation, you can obviously tell that Lilo is guilty about her behavior. You can tell that Lilo feels out of place and that she doesn't know what to do, and that the sisters still love each other because they're sisters. They're bound to argue first. Lilo doesn't see Nani as a parent because, if their parents just died, she only knew Nani as her older sister, and they do sisterly things. The fact that they're saying that Lilo is ungrateful? Why is that your first instinct? She's a kid, she's doing what normal children do, that maybe they're not seeing the things that their older people, their parents or their older siblings are doing for them, is because maybe it's expected? When you were a kid, for example, when, maybe you were 6 years old at one point, and your parents are doing your laundry for you. They cook you your breakfast. They make your lunches. They make sure you get to school. They make sure that everything gets done for you because it's expected of them. You probably didn't realize to be grateful or to be thank you until later in life when you're supposed to do your own chores, when going to school is basically your obligation. Because you were a kid. This was what childhood was like for you. You're supposed to have a normal childhood. You're supposed to be provided for because you're the kid, they're the adults. That's just common sense. That's just how it's supposed to be. So, to say that Lilo is ungrateful, like, that should not be the first thing that comes to mind. Lilo's just being a kid, or at least trying to be a kid in a tough situation where not every child goes through. Yeah, and Lilo's throwing a tantrum because she wants her sister's attention. She wants someone to notice her because her parents are not there. What is she supposed to do? She doesn't have any friends. Like, she needs someone there. Like, if you didn't have any friends, like, who do you go to? So, for you to say stuff like this, I'm already confused. Lilo is of the mindset that it's Nani's job to clean the house after her messes and takes that entirely for granted. And the message of the movie, family means nobody gets left behind, underscores this. It even says that it is the family's job to fix up its members' messes without holding that family member responsible or accountable. Have you not had a family, dude? First of all, Lilo is in the mindset that it's Nani's job because after her parents' death, Nani took that responsibility to take care of Lilo in the first place. So if that's what Lilo's has been accustomed to, of course that's what Lilo's expecting her sister to do. And then to take entirely for granted for it, I don't think she... Like, it makes her sound like that Lilo's manipulating Nani to do this. What manipulation? Like, Lilo's not manipulative. She's 6. What are you talking about? And then the message of the movie, nobody gets left behind. When I think of nobody gets left behind in family, like, it means to me that if you're a family, you're supposed to be connected together. You're not gonna leave a person out in the cold by themselves. Like, your family's supposed to bond and stay together through the good times and the bad. It doesn't mean, like, maybe someone commits a crime and they have to go to jail. It does not mean you have to clean up your family's mess by trying to cover up the situation or bailing them out because they did something bad. Good times and bad basically means since Lilo and Nani's parents died, then the only way they could stay together is making sure that they have the money to pay the bills. Or Lilo has her own room, that she has a roof over her head, that she has food to eat, that she's going to school, that she's getting the education that she needs, and that she's learning how to correct that bad behavior, as you should do, and that you don't give up on the other person when you know they're trying to make good. It doesn't mean that you're gonna be accountable for someone's actions or you're gonna take that as your own personal grievance. Like, Lilo's not a criminal if that's what you're saying. The natural result of that message is a wonderfully horrific movie called The Godfather. I highly recommend it if you haven't actually ever watched it. It is not a fun movie, but it's very eye-opening. How dare you? This is a children's movie. The Godfather is not. The Godfather is about the Mafia. Lilo and Stitch is not the Mafia. Who the hell are you trying to fool here? So when Lilo wishes for somebody to arrive to fix all of her problems again, somebody who'd reinforce the behaviors that she likes, regarding of how bad those behaviors are for everyone around her, well, she gets what she asked for. She gets Stitch. Okay, first of all, I remember that scene very vividly. When Lilo asks for an angel, she's asking for a friend. She's asking for someone who she can hang out with, someone to talk to, someone who understands her. She's not asking for someone to reinforce her bad behavior. Like, yeah, she gets Stitch, but that's just out of coincidence. And that's what the movie is about, so... A friend does not mean a person who is gonna validate the negative behavior that she has now. That's not the point. Now, Stitch is a monster. No, he's an alien. Stitch is, and should be, the physical manifestation of Lilo's bitterness, self-indulgence, and tendency to lash out at anything that's said against her. Or maybe he was an alien created by another alien, basically hellbound to destroy everything that he touches because that's what the alien created him to do? Of course she'd like this little beast. Well, she likes him because he was the first dog to approach her at the dog shelter, and he's just a little different from all the other dogs, so that's not the point. And the movie portrays him as a little beast, Sort of. Well, of course he does, because that was what he was created for. Did you forget that, or did you not watch the opening scene? He should be even more of a monster than the movie claims. It is not Stitch's narrative role in this kind of story to be sympathetic. Well, not at first. He needs to be the ultimate result of allowing your kid to become a little monster. What the hell does that even mean? Nani continues to indulge Lilo when she should be putting her foot down, and the result is that the household invites the worst kind of monster there is, one that everyone in the house created together. Well, first of all, Nani does put her foot down. If we're talking about the scene that happens at the luau restaurant type place where Nani got fired, it's because she's defending her little sister's honor. It's not that she's indulging this kind of behavior from Stitch. It's because that she doesn't want Lilo to see something really bad go down, and she doesn't want her pride to be stripped away from her boss, who's basically treating Nani kind of like garbage in the first place. So, Nani has put her foot down, and she has made an attempt to kick Stitch out of the house, because as soon as Stitch gets there, he's already kind of destroying the place because he doesn't know how Earth works, and like I said, from the opening scene of the movie, it was said that Stitch was supposed to be destructive. That's what he was created for. Of course, the humans don't know that, because they just met Stitch at the animal shelter. They have no idea what he was capable of doing. They didn't know he was an alien in the first place. And this was also the scene where Lilo does bring up Ohana means family, and family means nobody gets left behind. They adopted Stitch into their family, and yeah, because he's doing, like, destructive things, like, to be fair, every puppy, like, is destructive at the beginning, but you gotta teach them the good behaviors. So, Lilo basically says to Nani that even though, like, she's kinda destructive, but not that she chose to do it, even though it's kind of a choice, but at the same time, she's still coming into the world as a growing child. She's defending Stitch by saying he's going through the same thing that Lilo is going through, and that if Lilo hasn't been put out of the house because of that, Stitch shouldn't either. And Nani comes to realize that, and she says, okay, I understand, but you gotta teach this thing how to be good, or else it's really gonna go out of there, and Lilo does. Like, she's 6 and she doesn't know how to take care of an animal before, but she does her best in doing it. Where the story should go from here is that Lilo and Stitch have a grand old time together, wreaking further havoc on Nani's life and the lives of everyone around them, until finally the havoc actually affects Lilo's life, and she cannot avoid the repercussions. Her indulgence in allowing this little monster to destroy everything has brought things to a very, very bad place. I thought this movie already did that already, where, because of Lilo and Stitch's antics, they're wrecking Nani's attempts to get another job. And also, it becomes to the point where, Stitch did leave in order to protect Lilo, and then he comes back to protect Lilo again, but it also fails because... So I thought the story already kinda did that? Because Lilo's life almost kinda got wrecked, because then she also kinda gets kidnapped? I don't know what the point this guy is trying to make. If guy, girl, I don't know who they are. Lilo should try to confront Stitch, and Stitch should not care in the slightest, echoing how Lilo responded to when Nani finally tried to confront her. And now the reality of what's happening should sink in for Lilo, so her only remaining option would be to abandon Stitch to get rid of the monster. Only at this point would Stitch start to realize that he's done this to himself. Okay, how do I explain this one? I thought it already kind of happened in the surfing scene, because even though Lilo had no idea this was Jabulba and Pleakley's doing, but Stitch almost drowned her in the ocean. Again, not the fault of Stitch's own or Lilo's own, it just happens. But, and when Nani tried to confront her, it wasn't through negative actions, it was through sisterly actions, and like I said, Lilo is trying to improve on that behavior. It was because of Stitch on top of it too. So this person is trying to say that Lilo and Stitch should do more horrible things. It doesn't make the movie better. It doesn't create them a character arc because their character arc is already going. The fact they're saying, oh, we should make it a quick character arc in the third act, it doesn't make any sense. Things should get bad in the plot from here. As is commonly said, okay, what the hell is that phrasing? Acknowledging the problem is the only first step to fixing it. Lilo and Nani are left in pretty much a broken home where Nani has no idea what to do. Lilo has destroyed Nani's life, and yet Lilo doesn't want to accept the problem as it was her own doing. If she did accept it, she would have tried to act like it wasn't a part of her. She should have symbolically removed Stitch. First of all, Lilo has acknowledged that a couple times in the movie that, was it her and Stitch's fault that Nani has been basically, losing her job at every single chance that she had? But the thing about Nani is, she's a loving sister, and she doesn't fully put the blame on Lilo and Stitch because that's not right. Like, it's not right to blame a child for every single thing that goes wrong. I mean, they're just being kids. They didn't know what they were doing was also affecting Nani. They're just having fun. Lilo's trying her best to make sure that Stitch is going on the right path. So, in retrospect, Lilo did nothing wrong. So, to have that be the main point, again, that also doesn't make any sense. Why would Lilo have this ulterior motive to destroy Nani's life? It doesn't make any sense. Stitch is up in space or whatever, being brought back to the research lab or something. He was about to be sent to a prison planet because he was basically never supposed to be creative in the first place. There, however, he learns of something terrible that's going to happen to Nani and Lilo. Oh, wait, are you talking about where, he never went back to space? What are you talking about? Like, I thought when you were in the space part, it was talking about the opening scene, and he escapes to go to Earth. Like, wait, he was never in space, like, in the movie. If you're talking about one of the sequels, then yeah, but, like, not this movie. And all the people that put up with his nonsense for so long ago down Earth. What exactly this terrible thing that's going to happen is doesn't matter, because what matters is the theme, the moral being shown. Stitch tries to ignore it because, hey, it's not my problem, and can't shake the guilt that begins to eat him. At the last second, Stitch changes his mind and makes the right decision and arrives to rescue Lilo and Nani in the nick of time. Okay, so they're thinking that Stitch went back to space. I think the scene they're referring to is when Stitch leaves Lilo's house because he then realizes that it was because of their antics and that Nani couldn't keep down a job that Cobra Bubbles was going to take Lilo away. So Stitch said, oh no, this is my fault because Lilo's life is ruined because of me, so I'm going to leave because I'm only going to make her life worse. But then while he's away from the house, Jabulba finally finds Stitch again, and he runs away from him because he doesn't want to be taken away back into space again. So the right decision kind of is not really a right decision, but it's the instinctive decision to go back to Lilo because he thinks Lilo is going to get hurt because of Jabulba. What else could Stitch do? This takes place in Hawaii, mind you. Hawaii is an island. They're on the big island, actually, so it's surrounded by water. Stitch can't go anywhere else. This would be the good first thing that Stitch has ever done. Something entirely selfless for the benefit of another person. Think of how much stronger a message that would be then when after the day is saved, Stitch is welcomed back into the family and things are starting to look up for the three of them. It would be a story of personal growth, of how to face your own demons, and how to treat your loved ones with the respect they honestly deserve. How to show gratitude when somebody makes a sacrifice for you. Okay, are they talking about the scene where Gantu kidnaps Lilo and Stitch to bring them back into space? Yeah, Stitch does go back to get Nani, Jabulba, and Pleakley so they could fly up and rescue Lilo. That's the part he does. The first good thing that Stitch ever did was actually, I think, during the surfing scene where he finally, when he sees Lilo, Nani, and David hanging out with each other, he wanted to be a part of that family officially. So he wasn't being destructive, but he was being engaging with the family. So I think that was the good thing that he does first, instead of like destroying everything like he normally did. Or no, technically the first thing would be where after Lilo adopts Stitch at first, they go into town and Lilo is being bullied by her classmates again. I think the first thing Stitch did was help Lilo escape that situation. I mean, yeah, he kind of steals Myrtle's tricycle in order to do that, but and technically he was also escaping from the disguised Jaboba and Pleakley who officially come to Earth so they can take Stitch back. There have been moments where, yeah, Stitch is still kind of destructive because that's in his DNA, but there have also been times that, yeah, he's doing good things too, so Stitch is, like, not all bad, but Lilo does have, like, a badness level, and she does tell Stitch that we need to fix that, and he does. So I'm not understanding the point that this person's trying to make. But instead, we get the you should take love and take care of your family no matter how they abuse you and take for granted. What a horrible message. What abuse? There is no abuse in this movie whatsoever! Now, the spiel from my recent stream actually went on from there, and this account name that I can't pronounce would be able to speak more knowledgeably about it. But basically, the way she puts it is, from the depiction of Hawaiian culture in the film, the person/people who made the movie clearly had no first-hand experience in the area they were depicting, and instead were projecting what they thought it was like based on their own biases and intended messages. Hawaiian culture from Lilo and Stitch's time period was in reality very much the opposite to the way Lilo and Stitch glamorized it. But you won't hear people talking about that. What era are you talking about? Lilo and Stitch was made in modern day. So, Lilo and Stitch was supposed to take place in 2001-2002 Hawaii, which I would think would be just as somewhat normal as the mainland United States was back in that time period, so I'm not understanding what you're referring to with that. But for the first half of the rant, you were just talking about how Lilo is an abusive little brat. How did you go from that to also complaining about the Hawaiian culture that they used? I mean, am I going to say that the Hawaiian culture was downright accurate? First of all, no. And I've been to Hawaii, but I'm not going to white-splain to you what Hawaiian culture is because it is extremely complex, and because I was not Hawaiian-born or I wasn't raised there, I'm obviously not part Hawaiian by any means, so I would not be the right person to talk about Hawaiian culture, but to basically say that the movie had no first-hand experience of what they were depicting, I'm not even sure if they know what they're talking about either. At any rate, it's no wonder people like this movie. It's so incredibly indulgent and reinforces the notion that a person doesn't need to be responsible for themselves, because somebody else will fix every problem they ever have. What a blissfully irresponsible message. First of all, I think Lilo and Stitch definitely do acknowledge their own actions, and they do realize the consequences they have in the end, so at the end of the movie, it all gets fixed. And they do fix it themselves, and they do repair their own selves. So the fact that they're saying they should not take responsibility? No, that's not what happened. Watch out for the people who get offended at this sort of critique, and who react highly negatively when somebody insults something like this. It often means they've attached too much of their identity to that thing, and feel personally called out when somebody points out that it's a bad message. The only reason we're offended by this tweet is because you sounded like you're writing like a half-assed book report because you didn't read the book. You clearly did not watch this movie because the things that happen in this movie, or like the 75% that you said happened, did not happen. Okay, so I think the main source of the problem with this tweet is that this person who watched it was basically treating Lilo like they're one of the Disney princesses, or like an adult character that obviously had a more clear vision of the world that they're living in. But here's the point. Lilo is a child. Yeah, she has some sort of understanding of what her native Hawaii is like, but first of all, she is a child going through a tragedy that she doesn't understand. She's asking herself, why did my parents have to die? Why is it me who's getting bullied all the time? Why is my sister, like, now becoming the parent that my parents already died? Why is she saying that we're in trouble? I don't understand what's happening, because she's 6 and she has no idea what it means to get her taken away from her sister. And at the end, basically, when Bubbles is telling Nani that it's because of Nani that Lilo is being treated horribly, she's like, that's not true. My sister doesn't treat me horribly. And she realizes that even though she's trying to improve on that behavior, she's thinking it's not enough. So the only way that she can escape from that is just basically running away from everything. So Lilo's not stupid, for one thing. She's just a child who has no idea how to take care of grief. She's been grieving throughout this whole movie. And when she said she needed a friend, maybe what she needed was Stitch because, well, Stitch is not exactly human, but she's thinking that an animal friend would probably understand her situation much better than Nani could because Nani's so much older than Lilo. Well, basically, Lilo is alone. She doesn't have friends. Like, her parents just died, and her sister's working most of the time. She's alone before Stitch. She didn't know what to do. An adult would probably go out and try to find someone because they have the adult capabilities to do that. Lilo is a kid. She still needs to be told what to do for guidance. And if she doesn't have any friends at the environment where she thought she was the most safe, like, she's lost. She's a lost, weird kid. Yeah, she's not a girly girl and she gets bullied for that. Like, so what if she doesn't have a Barbie doll and she has Scrump to talk to? Like, first of all, the fact that she made her own doll, that's impressive in its own right. And the fact that she's into all these, like, kooky and scary and alien things and those, like, B-rated, like, monster movies, that makes her unique. That makes her different from all the other girls, and that makes Lilo a good character. And to say that she's a brat and abusive and, like, she takes advantage of Nani on purpose, that's not true. Like, but, like, it's basic family science. A 3-year-old can tell you that Lilo is not a bad person. Like, as a 24-year-old, I can tell you still that Lilo is not a bad person. When I was 6 years old, still watching that movie, like 6 or 7 years old. Like, I can tell you that I liked Lilo because I could relate to her. Like, because I was a weird kid when I was younger. Like, I didn't like everything that stereotypically a girly girl should like. I mean, yes, I like makeup because I'm wearing it. I liked clothes. But when I was a kid, I was more into books. Like, I didn't care about, like, going shopping every week for a new purse or a new dress. My exciting trip was going to the bookstore as a reward. That's what I liked. So what I think this person is doing, as I've said before, is that they're treating Lilo like they would a older teenager or an adult character who should be understanding how the world should work. But obviously they can't because socially and logically, for a 6-year-old, it doesn't make any sense. And I would arguably say that Lilo's one of the best realistically made child characters that Disney's ever done. She's played by a child actress, she acts like a kid, and that's how she should be portrayed. And she's not a bad kid either. Like, like, I would compare her to, like, the misunderstood kid from one of those TV shows who's, like, they're not bad, but they come off that way because she's not normal like all the other kids are. Like, she doesn't fall in line. And, like, she doesn't, like, have a clique to hang out with, so, oh, she must be a loner, so she must be bad. No, she's not. That's what makes Lilo have a really good character arc throughout this whole movie. That she needed Stitch because the both of them are different, but they could find similarities in each other that they become the best of friends that Disney's ever made. So, I have a friend who's actually in grad school studying child psychology, and I asked him for his opinions about this tweet if he saw it, and here's how he responded. Yup, it's a mess and a half. Where to even start? To which I reply, the fact that it sounds like he never watched this movie at all, or he's even a major in psychology. He pointed out that it's a she. They missed the entire point of the movie. They are looking at Lilo as an abuser when she's just a child. She's 6 going through the death of her parents. What is wrong with this person? Expectations of Lilo behaving like an adult and expecting something different out of the movie. So, case in point, if you're going to watch a child's movie and basically not comprehend that even a child's movie sometimes needs to go through, like, difficult subjects, like grieving the death or not fitting in or possibly getting taken away from your family situation, because Nani is all Lilo has left. They are sisters. Nani is doing the best she can. She sacrificed so much to give Lilo the proper childhood that Lilo deserves. And Lilo knows this. Lilo's not stupid. She's aware that things are not good, and she feels like she can't really do anything because she's a kid. Kids can't work. And all that Nani's telling Lilo to do is just be a normal kid, but you gotta work on your attitude, which Lilo had been doing the entire time. Lilo's not a bad person, and abuser is not the word I would use for a 6-year-old. So for those of you who are thinking that, you're crazy. And it angers me that they also missed the whole entire point of why Stitch was there. Like, they did not watch the first 5 to 10 minutes of this movie at all, because they would entirely understand where Stitch came from, why he's programmed the way he is, and it's because of Lilo and how, like, everything on Earth is precious in some way or form, and that Lilo accepts him for who he is, that Stitch begins to change, and that he actually cares about this family. In fact, what Stitch says at the very end of the movie explains what the movie is about as a whole.
This is my family. I found it all on my own. It's little and broken, but still good.
And if you all did not understand that, then should you be watching kids' movies? Should you be watching Disney movies because they do this all the time? I don't know. That's up to you. Because for me, I cannot express to you how much this person misinterpreted this entire thing. It angers me that one of my favorite movies, something so simple, yet at the same time it teaches a giant message about maybe a family is not your nuclear family of having your siblings and then your parents being there, but a family is a unit where they combine together and they learn to love each other despite their quirks, despite, like, their flaws, despite the bad things that happen. As long as they get through them, then they can succeed. And at the end of the movie, they do. Like, there's not really much I can really say anything else about this. I'm not gonna indulge in this any further, but I thought I would give my 2 cents anyway. So, if you guys liked this little rant, you can hit the like button down below, and if you have any other opinions about this, which I know you do, you can put that in the comments section and we can start a conversation together. If you haven't done so already, also hit the subscribe button and you can check out the rest of my channel if you like. I'm Cait, and it's been real. Ciao!